So today is D-Day in the WNBA. It is D-Day, and in my opinion, we have got a situation where we have now got players that are being cut that are legitimately good. Like, this isn't a situation where it's like, oh yeah, Marta Suarez got cut and she's not going to do anything. We've now got a situation where in the last 3 hours, I believe 3 players got cut. That if the Indiana Fever don't sign any of the 3, it's malpractice. It is malpractice. The Fever don't need Shatori Walker-Kimbrough.
There are moments in professional sports that become turning points, not because of what happened on the court, but because of what happened in a front office conference room where someone chose silence over action. These are the moments that haunt franchises for decades. The moments that get replayed in documentary footage years later, while analysts shake their heads and mutter, "They had the chance. They had every single chance, and they did nothing." Today was one of those moments. Welcome to WNBA D-Day, the single most chaotic, consequential, and emotionally charged day on the league calendar. This is the day when rosters get finalized, when dreams get deferred, and when front offices either prove they have the vision to build something special or reveal that they are perfectly comfortable watching greatness pass them by from the comfort of their ergonomic office chairs. Cut day in the WNBA is not like cut day in other sports. The roster limits are tighter, the margins are thinner, and the talent that gets released into the waiver pool is often staggeringly good. This isn't a minor league situation. These are players who have trained their entire lives, who have competed at the highest levels of the sport, and who are being set free not because they aren't talented enough, but because the mathematics of a 1-2 player roster simply doesn't accommodate everyone who deserves a spot. And today, in the span of just 3 hours, 3 power forwards of legitimate, undeniable, roster-changing quality were cut loose into the open market. 3 players who could fundamentally alter the trajectory of a franchise. 3 players who fit like custom-tailored pieces into the specific puzzle that the Indiana Fever are desperately trying to complete around the most hyped rookie in the history of women's basketball. The question hanging in the air like a storm cloud over Indianapolis is simple and devastating. Will the Indiana Fever do something about it, or will they watch these opportunities disappear while pretending the problem doesn't exist? Because if they choose the latter, there is only one word for it: malpractice. To fully understand the magnitude of what unfolded today, you have to appreciate the unique ecosystem of the WNBA and why Cut Day operates so differently than it does in other professional leagues. The NBA has 15 roster spots per team and an extensive G League pipeline that allows organizations to stash players, develop them quietly, and bring them up when the timing is right. The WNBA has no such luxury. Rosters are lean, seasons are short, and every single spot matters in a way that is almost impossible to overstate. When a player gets cut on D-Day in the WNBA, she doesn't get to quietly decompress in the developmental pipeline and wait for her next opportunity. She enters a brutally competitive waiver system where every team in the league has a window to claim her. And if no team acts, she either signs a developmental contract somewhere or she goes home and waits for next year. The urgency is real. The stakes are enormous. And the window to act is measured not in days, but in hours. This is why what happened today felt so dramatic, so electric, and so frustrating all at once. Because the players who hit the wire this afternoon were not fringe contributors or developmental longshots. They were legitimate contributors, players with verified production, verified size, verified fit for specific roster needs, and in several cases, verified personal chemistry with the most important player in the game right now. When analysts who cover this league every single day started going public with their disbelief, when the voices who normally deal in measured takes and careful analysis started using phrases like basketball malpractice and "I cannot believe what I'm watching," you know something genuinely unusual was happening. This wasn't manufactured outrage for content. This was the authentic reaction of people who understand roster construction and could see with crystalline clarity that the Indiana Fever were sitting on their hands during a moment that demanded decisive action. Let's start with the player whose release from the Dallas Wings set the tone for what would become one of the most surreal days in recent WNBA memory. Amy Okonkwo. The name might not ring bells for the casual fan, but anyone who has been paying attention to the development landscape of this league over the past calendar year knows exactly who she is and exactly what she represents. Standing at 6 feet 2 inches with a frame that projects strength, athleticism, and the kind of physical durability that power forwards need to survive in this league, Okonkwo is not a project. She is not a developmental gamble. She is a player who stepped onto an WNBA floor last season and immediately performed at a level that most rookies take years to reach, if they reach it at all. Consider the numbers, because they tell a story that is almost impossible to dismiss. In just 8 games during her rookie season with the Dallas Wings, Okonkwo averaged 11 points per game. She did it on 50% shooting from the field, which in a league where efficiency is everything, is a number that makes coaches salivate. She shot 90% from the free throw line, which tells you something essential about her mechanics, her composure under pressure, and her ability to perform when the moment gets tight. She was also connecting at roughly 33% from three-point range, which, for a 6'2" power forward who can also put the ball on the floor and attack the rim, is the exact kind of shooting stroke that unlocks every single offensive system in modern basketball. 8 games. That was her entire sample size. 8 games, and she produced at that level. And then Dallas cut her. The reaction from analysts who caught the news was immediate and visceral. One commentator compared it to watching someone throw a winning lottery ticket in the trash. Another said it felt like watching a perfectly good sports car get pushed off a cliff because someone decided they preferred their old bicycle. The disbelief was genuine, and it was widespread, because anyone with eyes and a basic understanding of what the Indiana Fever need right now could see the fit immediately. Here is the context that makes Okonkwo's availability even more extraordinary. She is under contract on a minimum deal not just for this season, but for 3 additional years. 3 years of controlled, affordable, high-efficiency production from a player who just proved she can hang with the best competition in the world. The Fever could claim her and have her in the system for the entirety of what most analysts are projecting as Caitlin Clark's first real championship window. Think about that. You are not just acquiring a player for 1 season. You are potentially locking in a cornerstone contributor at a fraction of what her production is worth for the foreseeable future. And there is one more detail that elevates this from simply a good roster move to something approaching a perfect basketball marriage. Amy Okonkwo and Caitlin Clark have shared the court on Team USA programs. They are not strangers trying to figure out each other's tendencies in a training camp setting. They have already played together at a high level. The chemistry is not theoretical. It exists. It has been tested. It works. For a team that desperately needs interior size, rebounding, and floor spacing to complement the gravitational pull that Clark creates every time she touches the ball, passing on Amy Okonkwo would be the kind of decision that front offices spend years explaining away. Days before this waiver wire moment, Okonkwo stepped onto the floor against the Las Vegas Aces, one of the most intimidating defensive environments in the entire league, and dropped 8 points, while competing with the kind of confidence and physicality that you simply cannot teach. She is not rusty. She is not tentative. She is ready. If Amy Okonkwo's release from Dallas was the opening act of D-Day, then Maddie Westbeld's availability was the moment the curtain fully parted to reveal just how extraordinary this waiver wire situation had become. Westbeld is 6 feet 3.5 inches of exactly what modern basketball demands from a power forward. She is a stretch 4 in the truest sense of the term, a player who can step out to the three-point line and demand defensive attention, which in turn keeps the paint open for drivers, cutters, and post players to operate in space they wouldn't otherwise have. In an era where floor spacing is not just an asset but an absolute requirement for any offense that wants to compete at the highest level, Westbeld is precisely the type of player that championship teams are built around. Her last major performance before hitting the waiver wire was a 2-5-point outburst against the New York Liberty, a team with one of the most respected defensive systems in the WNBA. 25 points against the Liberty. If you need a single data point to understand that Maddie Westbeld is not a development project, but a legitimate contributor who can perform in high-pressure environments, that game is your answer. What makes her situation particularly maddening from an Indiana Fever perspective is the combination of factors that make her fit borderline perfect. She was projected to be the 8th overall pick in the draft before she made the decision to return for a super senior season, which means her pedigree and potential were already validated by league scouts at the highest level. She has the basketball IQ that coaches consistently cite as the separator between players who look good in practice and players who actually perform when the game slows down and decisions have to be made in a fraction of a second. And just like Okonkwo, Westbeld carries the invaluable advantage of having played alongside Caitlin Clark in Team USA settings. The chemistry is not something that needs to be manufactured or hoped for. It has already been established under competitive conditions. They know where each other wants the ball. They know how each other moves. They know the rhythm of playing together. And in a sport where rhythm is often the difference between good and great, that familiarity is worth more than any statistical projection. Critics of the Fever's front office decisions will sometimes argue that the team already has Damiris Dantas filling the stretch 4 role, and that there is no need to disrupt what is currently in place. But this argument collapses under even mild scrutiny. Dantas is a player who has shown the ability to get hot from three-point range on specific nights, but her consistency is a legitimate concern, and her overall contributions in the areas that actually determine whether a team wins or loses on a possession-by-possession basis are substantially below what Westbeld offers. The idea of choosing Dantas over Westbeld is not a strategic basketball decision. It is nostalgia and familiarity masquerading as roster management. You can talk yourself out of the Westbeld signing if you are deeply committed to the idea that Dantas's occasional hot shooting nights are worth the trade-offs. But the argument becomes increasingly difficult to sustain when you look at the totality of what Westbeld brings and what the Fever are currently lacking. She is younger, more mobile, more defensively capable, and better equipped to operate within the high-tempo, read-and-react offensive system that any team built around Caitlin Clark is going to run. And then there is Sika Kone. If Okonkwo is the lottery ticket thrown in the trash, and Westbeld is the stretch 4 solution sitting in plain sight, then Sika Kone is the player whose potential availability represents the kind of opportunity that comes along once in a generation of roster building. The discourse around Kone has been building for weeks, but D-Day crystallized it into something urgent and unavoidable, because Kone is not just a good basketball player who fits a need. She is a transformational piece who addresses the single most glaring structural deficiency on the Indiana Fever roster in a way that no other available player can match. Let's talk about that structural deficiency directly, because it is the conversation the Indiana Fever front office seems determined to avoid. Every competitive team in the WNBA has a versatile wing-forward hybrid who can play between the 3 and 4 positions with equal effectiveness. This is not a luxury or a stylistic preference. It is a fundamental requirement of modern basketball at any level. The 3 to 4 position is where defensive matchup problems get created, where offensive spacing gets optimized, and where the connective tissue of a winning system lives. Look at the teams that have been most successful in the WNBA over the past 5 years. Look at the Las Vegas Aces during their back-to-back championship run. Look at the New York Liberty as they have evolved into legitimate contenders. Every single one of them has that versatile 3 to 4 option who can guard multiple positions and create offense in multiple ways. The Indiana Fever entering what should be the most important season in the franchise's recent history, do not have that player. Sika Kone is that player. She has 6 feet 2 inches of physical versatility, coming back from an ACL tear that could have derailed her development but instead seems to have sharpened it. During her recovery, Kone immersed herself in film study with a level of dedication that coaches who have worked with her describe as exceptional. She did not just let her body heal. She used the time to develop the basketball intelligence that separates role players from impact players. When she stepped back onto the floor against the Atlanta Dream, the reaction from those watching was immediate. This is a player who belongs in a starting rotation on a contender, not a player still finding her footing. Her performance against the Dream was not the hesitant, cautious performance you typically see from a player working her way back from a major injury. It was confident, physical, and intelligent. She was in the right place, repeatedly. She was boxing out with ferocity. She was making decisions quickly and correctly. The ACL recovery narrative, which opponents of her signing will inevitably lean on as their primary argument, simply does not hold up to what she is actually showing on the floor right now. What makes the Kone conversation so infuriating from the perspective of Indiana Fever fans is the specific comparison being drawn between her and the players the Fever are currently choosing to keep. The argument is not that Kone is marginally better than some players on the roster. The argument is that she is measurably, demonstrably better at virtually every single thing the Indiana Fever need from their forwards than the players currently occupying those roster spots. She rebounds better, she defends more versatilely, she makes smarter decisions. She plays with the kind of relentless effort that coaching staffs build defensive cultures around. She is not a player who takes possessions off. She is not a player who loses her man in transition or gets caught flat-footed when the ball reverses quickly. She is, by every meaningful measure, an upgrade over what the Fever are currently running out there. And the contract situation mirrors Okonkwo's in its absurdity. The financial commitment required to claim Kone from waivers is minimal. For a franchise that is currently operating in a league where Caitlin Clark is driving unprecedented revenue growth through ticket sales, jersey sales, and broadcast ratings, the cost of adding Sika Kone is essentially a rounding error. There is no legitimate financial argument for passing on her. The only argument left is the veteran experience argument, and it is the weakest argument of all. Here is the logic you will hear from the Indiana Fever front office if they choose to let these 3 players slip away. They will tell you that Shatori Walker-Kimbrough brings championship experience to a young roster. They will tell you that having players who have been in high-pressure situations, who have won titles, who understand what it takes to compete when everything is on the line, is worth more than raw statistics. They will package this argument in the language of culture and intangibles and veteran leadership. It is a compelling narrative. It is also, in the context of what the Indiana Fever need right now, almost entirely wrong. Let's examine the championship experience argument with the rigor it deserves. Shatori Walker-Kimbrough won a championship 7 years ago. The WNBA landscape has changed dramatically since that title. The players are faster, the systems are more sophisticated, the defensive schemes are more complex, and the physical demands of competing at the top level of this sport have escalated considerably. Championship experience from 7 years ago is a resume line item. It is not a present tense basketball skill. It is not something that shows up on the defensive end when a team needs a stop. It is not something that creates a basket when the offense is stagnant. Look at how the dynasties that actually define the modern WNBA era were constructed. The Las Vegas Aces, who ran back-to-back championships, were not built primarily by accumulating veterans with old championship rings. They were built with hungry, high-impact players who were in their prime and could contribute at an elite level right now. The New York Liberty's evolution into a contender was driven by identifying players at the perfect intersection of talent and timing. Players who were ready to perform at the highest level immediately, not players who had proven themselves in a different era of the sport. Chelsea Gray is the only veteran from those Aces rosters who would fit the profile that the Fever seemed to be prioritizing. And gray is relevant because she is still one of the best players in the league right now, not because of what she accomplished in the past. That distinction is critical. It is the present tense that matters. It is, what can you do for this roster, in this season, in these specific games, that determines whether you deserve a spot. By that standard, Sika Kone, Amy Okonkwo, and Maddie Westbeld are not just comparable to the veterans currently on the Indiana roster. They are superior in the specific ways that the Indiana Fever need players to be superior. The Fever also need to be honest about something that is sometimes treated as a sensitive subject. They actually already have veteran leadership and experience on this roster. Erica Wheeler is a veteran. Aaliyah Boston, despite her relative youth, plays with a poise and intelligence that makes her feel like a 10-year veteran. Sophie Cunningham brings championship experience. Katie Lou Samuelson brings veteran composure. The roster is not lacking in veteran steadiness. What it is lacking is the athletic versatility, the defensive engagement, and the physical presence that the three players currently available on the waiver wire would provide. Adding Kone, Okonkwo, or Westbeld would not destabilize the veteran leadership structure of this team. It would add the athleticism and versatility that the veteran leadership structure currently lacks. These are not mutually exclusive concepts. You can have veteran leadership and dynamic young talent on the same roster. The best rosters in the league do this every single year. Any discussion of the Indiana Fever roster has to begin and end with Caitlin Clark, because she is the organizing principle around which every other decision must be made. And understanding what Clark needs from her teammates is the key to understanding why the players on today's waiver wire are so essential. Clark is a generational passer. This is not hyperbole. This is the assessment of coaches, former players, and analysts who have spent their careers evaluating basketball talent. Her ability to find open teammates, to read defenses, to create advantages with her eyes and her shot fake and her decision-making is at a level that the WNBA has rarely seen in a player of her experience level. When she is operating in rhythm within a system that uses her creation ability correctly, she is a nightmare for opposing defenses. But here is the challenge. When a player of Clark's caliber steps onto the floor, defenses do not sit back and wait to see what happens. They game plan aggressively to take away her advantages. They double team. They send help early. They clog the paint to eliminate driving lanes. They pack the zone to make her pull-up jumpers more difficult. The way you beat those defensive adjustments is with teammates who can punish defenses for making them. When the double team comes to Clark, the open player has to be someone who can catch the ball in a contested catch situation and either knock down the shot or make the next pass correctly. When the defense collapses the paint, the floor spacers on the perimeter have to be threats that the defense genuinely fears. And when Clark drives and the help defense rotates, the cutter to the basket has to be someone who can finish above the rim or through contact. Right now, the Indiana Fever roster does not have enough of those players. The floor spacing is inconsistent. The finishing at the rim is below average. The ability to punish defenses for sending help to Clark is not what it needs to be for this team to compete with the elite organizations in this league. Amy Okonkwo provides rim running, physical finishing, and the defensive anchoring to keep opponents from getting easy buckets on the other end. Maddie Westbeld provides the floor spacing and the intelligent cutting that forces defenses into impossible choices. Sika Kone provides the defensive versatility, the 3-4 positional flexibility, and the relentless physicality that championship defenses require. Together, they would transform the geometry of what the Indiana Fever can do on both ends of the floor. Picture a specific possession. Caitlin Clark drives left, draws the double team, kicks it to the corner. If the corner player is a genuine shooting threat, the defense has to close out hard. When they close out, the driving lane reopens, and the next pass creates another advantage. This chain of decision-making and space creation is how elite offenses generate high percentage shots at high volume throughout the course of a game. But it only works if every player on the floor is someone the defense genuinely fears. If you have a player in the corner that the defense knows they can sag off without consequence, the entire chain breaks down. Westbeld in that corner is a threat. Okonkwo cutting from the elbow is a threat. Kone defending the opponent's best wing so that the Fever can play aggressive defensively without sacrificing matchup quality is a structural advantage that elevates every other player on the floor. The tools to build this are available right now, today, in the next few hours. They are sitting on the waiver wire with their phones in their hands, waiting for a call from a team smart enough to recognize the opportunity. If you need a concrete example of what happens when the Indiana Fever hesitate while a clearly talented player is available, you only need to look at a situation that already played out this season and left fans absolutely stunned. Kayla Charles was on a roster that was struggling badly, losing game after game, finding it difficult to generate any kind of momentum. And in the midst of all that losing, there was this one player who kept catching the eye of anyone paying close attention. Not a star, not a household name, but a player who simply did everything right. Every possession, every game. She played hard. She played smart. She did the little things that coaches talk about in film sessions but rarely see executed consistently at game speed. The commentary around her at the time was cautious, but genuine. She is good. She is really good. She should probably be starting over certain players who are getting more minutes right now. She has something about her that you cannot teach and cannot fake. And then she got cut. The prevailing wisdom in the immediate aftermath was that the team cutting her was planning to bring her back in a different roster construction scenario, that this was a procedural move rather than a genuine goodbye. Fans told each other to relax. The front offices would figure it out. Golden State snapped her up before anyone could blink. By the time the Indiana Fever, or anyone else, woke up to what had happened, Kayla Charles was signed to a contract worth $600,000 per year with the Golden State Valkyries. She is now on a different team, becoming exactly the player everyone who watched her closely knew she could become. And she is doing it somewhere else because the window to act closed in the time it took someone to hesitate. This is the cautionary tale that should be playing on a loop in the Indiana Fever front office right now. This is the specific, recent, documented proof that hesitation has consequences, that the waiver wire moves fast, that the players who seem like they will be available tomorrow are sometimes gone by tonight, that the front office's job is to move with urgency when the situation demands it, and the situation right now is demanding it at full volume. Let's walk through the scenario that everyone who has been watching this situation closely is dreading. Let's say the Indiana Fever front office decides not to act. They decide that their current roster is sufficient, that the veterans they have in place provide enough stability, and that the risk of disrupting roster chemistry is not worth the potential reward of adding any of these three players. What happens next? Amy Okonkwo gets claimed by a team in the Eastern Conference that the Fever will face multiple times this season. She steps into a starting role, produces at or above the level her limited rookie season suggested she was capable of, and becomes a consistent problem for Indiana specifically because they know exactly what she can do and exactly how good she is. Every time she scores against them, every time she grabs a crucial rebound in the fourth quarter or hits a big shot late in the game, the memory of this day gets a little more painful. Maddie Westbeld signs with a team that has been quietly assembling the pieces for a deep playoff run. She provides the floor spacing that unlocks their offensive system, forms an immediate connection with their primary ball handler because she has the IQ to make that happen quickly, and becomes one of the more interesting stories of the season because of how clearly she was undervalued in the initial roster construction process. She gets better with every game. By the playoffs, she is a legitimate difference maker. Indiana watches from the outside. And Sika Kone. If Kone clears waivers and goes back to the Chicago Sky on a developmental contract, the specific outcome that several commentators have identified as the worst-case scenario, the irony will be almost too much to process. The Sky become a team with a versatile 3-4 defender who can disrupt Clark specifically because she has the athleticism, the length, and the defensive intelligence to bother a player of Clark's profile. Indiana built the most exciting offensive player in the league and then allowed the team in their own conference to acquire the specific defensive archetype most capable of slowing her down. This is not a hypothetical constructed to generate outrage. This is a reasonable projection of outcomes based on the talent levels involved and the roster needs of the teams most likely to claim these players. The consequences of inaction are not abstract. They are concrete, and they are predictable, and they are preventable. The organizations that build sustained excellence in professional basketball at any level and in any league share a common characteristic. They do not wait for the perfect moment to make the perfect decision. They act when the information is clear and the opportunity is present, even if that means moving quickly and trusting that their evaluation process has prepared them to make good decisions under time pressure. The Las Vegas Aces did not become back-to-back champions by being cautious. The New York Liberty did not transform themselves into a perennial contender by playing it safe. The teams that define what winning looks like in the modern WNBA are the teams that identify value where others see risk, that move with conviction when the data supports action, and that refuse to let the perfect become the enemy of the very, very good. The Indiana Fever have the most exciting player in the history of their franchise. They have a head coach in Stephanie White who understands the game at a sophisticated level and who has been publicly vocal about what this roster needs. They have a fan base that is selling out arenas and generating revenue at a level the franchise has never experienced. They have every institutional reason to act boldly, every competitive reason to act urgently, and every moral obligation to the players and fans who have invested in this team to act intelligently. Today is the test of whether they actually will. The waiver wire does not stay open indefinitely. The window does not stay cracked. Every hour that passes without action is an hour that another team's front office is doing the work that Indiana should be doing. And in a league where the margins between winning and losing are measured in possessions and matchups, and the incremental advantages that good roster construction creates, those hours matter enormously. 48 hours from now, we will know what the Indiana Fever decided to do. We will know whether they acted or hesitated, whether they trusted their evaluation process and moved boldly, or whether they deferred to familiarity and comfort and let 3 legitimate contributors find homes elsewhere. And the WNBA universe will be watching. This is not just a story about roster management, though it is absolutely that. This is a story about organizational identity, about what kind of franchise the Indiana Fever want to be in the most important era of their existence. Because, make no mistake about it, the Caitlin Clark era is the most important era in the history of this franchise. Nothing that came before it compares in terms of the spotlight, the expectations, the opportunity to build something genuinely remarkable, and the scrutiny that will be applied to every decision made along the way. The front office has a choice. They can be the organization that recognized the opportunity, moved quickly, trusted the process, and surrounded their franchise player with exactly the players she needed to compete for championships during her peak years. Or they can be the organization that had the lottery tickets in their hands and dropped them. Stephanie White's frustration is not just the frustration of a coach who sees what her team is missing. It is the frustration of someone who understands that championship windows are not permanent, that the convergence of an elite player, available talent, and organizational momentum does not repeat itself on demand. These moments are rare. These specific confluences of opportunity and need and availability are the moments that define whether a franchise rises or falls. Amy Okonkwo, Maddie Westbeld, and Sika Kone are sitting by their phones right now. They are capable. They are ready. They fit. They are affordable. Several of them have chemistry with the player they would be playing alongside. Every single variable that front offices spend years trying to align is aligned right now, today, in the span of these next few critical hours. The rest of the league is not hoping Indiana figures this out. The rest of the league is praying that Indiana stays asleep, because a fully assembled Indiana Fever roster with the right pieces around Caitlin Clark is a terrifying prospect for every other team in this league. They can see what Indiana is too cautious to reach for. Whether this becomes the foundation of something historic or the beginning of a cautionary tale about the costs of hesitation is a decision being made right now in Indianapolis. The talent is there. The fit is undeniable. The clock is running. Act like a championship organization, Indiana, before someone else does it for you.